Blackbeard Mirage, he back once again. Time to go into some more American occultism. And right now we're going to basically deal with some Egyptian mysticism and deal with the higher Islamic Egyptian sciences, okay? Because I've told you all before that what we call Islam, or the science or the mystery system of Islam, is really just a consolidated, updated version of the Egyptian mystery system. And that the, Muslims, or who you all call the original Arabs, or these aboriginal people, these Hebrews, they actually were the descendants of the ancient Egyptian, okay, or these ancient peoples who came post the flood. So these people who started the early civilizations after the cataclysmic events of Atlantis and Lemuria, if some of these volcanoes destroy some of these old civilizations. So when we say Egypt, we basically just mean the early civilization that sprouted up out of the earth after the flood, or after, these apocalyptic events that you read in so-called Genesis. Because when you read in Genesis, one of the early, empires is the so-called Egyptian empire. So nevertheless, we're going to read a little bit into the Egyptian empire. Now, what I want you to think about is now, when we talking about Egypt, we still are talking about the American soil. All right. So we're not talking about somewhere across the Atlantic. You got to remember that you all have citizenship, or basically you are indigenous. I would say rather more, you are indigenous to the American soil, and you have basically long distance relatives who probably haven't been over here in quite some time, but they are across the Atlantic in the areas that you call, so-called Africa. So you have the Egypt of the West, which is America, and then you have the Egypt of the East, which is, so-called Africa. Okay. So the Egyptian sciences and symbolism is highly associated with us. That's why we, are very, very closely linked to that. That's why in the Black conscious community, most of those people deal with the Egyptian sciences. But it's very, very interesting how the Hebrew community, the Moorish community, the RBG community, they don't link together, where they all really are the same thing. But one thing you do see that's overwhelming in so-called Black consciousness, you're going to see Egyptian science, and you're going to see people are dealing with Islam. And the reason why is because those are basically the two last systems that our ancestors left behind for us. So today we're going to kind of talk a little bit about the Moslem, or the Moor, and deal with nature and deal with nationality. Okay. And we're going to go into some information that I have. And, what I want you all to get out of this tape is just connecting the Islamic sciences, or the ancient Arabic sciences, to the Egyptian sciences. OK, because I need you to understand that the Islamic system, or what we call Islam, is nothing but modern day Egyptian wisdom. OK, it's no different. All right. So these Moors that went into Europa, that some came from over here and some came from the Levant, these were the descendants of the Egyptians. And this scientific system named Islam is just an updated version of our old system, or our old, we could just say, the wealth of knowledge that we had. Islam is just an updated version of it. So I want to read a little bit about the oldest hieroglyphic of the name Moors. And we're going to dig into the temple of Luxor Merri, or so-called Egypt, or Kemet. All right. And this source is coming from Dr. Muata Ashby. His name is Dr. Muata Ashby. That's the source that I'm reading from. You spell his name Muata, M-U-A-T-A. Last name Ashby, A-S-H-B-Y. The source is Dr. Muata Ashby. And clearly this brother, or this sister, is dealing with the Egyptian hieroglyphic. All right. So let's go into some stuff. So Neteru Merri. All right. In the Commission teaching of devotional love, God is termed Merri, which means the beloved one. Okay. So the first thing I want you to get is what the name Merri means. M-E-R-R-I, Merri, M-E-R-R-I. And the hieroglyphic means beloved one. Now that's very, very important for us, because we have a Maryland. We have a Maryland here in America. All right. And also Yeshua's mother, or the Christ mother, is named what? Mary, right? And another version of that is also Martha. All right. That's why in the movie Batman versus Superman, did you notice that both Batman and Superman's mother's name was Martha? Because Martha, Mary, Mayat, this is all the same thing. Maryland. dealing with basically the virgin aboriginal woman. All right. So the word Merri means beloved one. And that's also that MR where it's going to continue in the future where you're going to get the word more from. All right. So another word for more is also a beloved one. All right. All life came from the black waters of Nu, called space, or the neutron soup, or the Neteru, or Neteru, which is where Negro is derived from etymologically. Excuse me. So first we have right here, we're talking about the black waters of Nu, or also known as space, or the neutron soup, or the Neteru, or the Neteru. This is nothing but the black waters of melanin. You've heard me talk about that plenty of times. Okay, so think about the waters of melanin, or the waters of noon. All right, so this is dealing with the cosmic waters of melanin. All right, and this is where you get your word Negro from. So although you see the word Negro being applied to us by the Spaniard in describing, you know, us as being quote unquote black, but even this word Negro has a much older word stemming from Neteru or Neteru. All right, and that's basically dealing with the black waters of noon. So that's why the Negro people are called so-called black people. And although this isn't our proper name, it's on a more occult level, showing the connection we have to the black waters of noon, which is where we were all born from. All right. The word, what we commonly use, Niggaz, also comes from the ancient glyph Niggaz, or Neggaz, or Niggaz, is the hieroglyphic for the black people of Africa. We were the first ones to call ourselves by these names, and we understood their cosmic biological meaning. Here is the glyph. So real quick, I'm going to show you all the hieroglyphic of the Niggaz. All right. So here we have in front of us, dealing with some hieroglyphic real quick. We have the Neggaz. All right. But as we can see right here in this translation, we have the word Negro. OK. So basically, this is just dealing with the black waters of noon. All right. And just showing us why we still use this word Niggaz, and why you don't need to let these Caucasian people stop you from using that word. That is your original word. So the Neggaz, or the Negus, is dealing with the black waters of noon. All right. So continuing on, let's move on to the next part in our study. The Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad teaches that all of the original indigenous people are Moslem by nature, not by religion. Let me repeat. The Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad teaches that all of the original indigenous people are Muslims by nature, not by religion. Prophet Noble Drew Ali was the first to teach this to our people after we had experienced slavery. The word Muslim or Muslim is derived from the Arabic or Hebraic Ma or Ma'u, M-A-A or M-A-U, which stems from the Egyptian Sumerian Mu, M-O-U, which means or meant waters. The root stem S-L-M implies peace. So Mu-Salaam means a being who is derived from al-Maa and is a being of peace. The waters that we are derived from are twofold, spiritually and scientifically. The first is dealing with the placenta and our origin from the waters of the womb of our mothers, the woman. The second aspect deals with a verse of, deals with a verse of spiritual science from the Quran in Surah 21, Al-Anbiya, the prophets, verse 30. It is most often translated as, we're going to go to that in a minute. So before I move on, you know, we see right here that the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad and the brother Prophet Noble Drew Ali were teaching that we were Muslims by nature and not by religion. The word Muslim or Muslim is derived from the Hebraic Arabic Ma'a or Ma'u, and this stems from the Egyptian Sumerian. So what you got to remember is a lot of the Arabic language, okay, is coming from the Egyptian and the Sumerian. So when we do the etymology, we have to break down these different syllables. And then when we study these syllables, when we break these words down, because it may be a 3-syllable word, a 4-syllable word, etc. But when we do the etymology, we break this all down, we can start seeing where these cultures come from. So when I say that the Islam is an updated version of the Egyptian mystery system, this is why I'm saying that, because when we break down a lot of these Arabic words that are used in Islam, they go back to ancient Egypt. Okay. So this goes to show you that whoever were making these languages more than likely were involved in both of these societies. Okay. So it says that, so you have the word Ma, which stems from the Sumerian Mu, which means water. Okay. And then you have the stem, which is SLM or slim, like Moslem. And this implies peace. Okay. So a Mu-Salaam or Salam or Mu-Salaam means a being who is derived from al-Maa and is a being of peace. So a Moslem is a being of peace. It is a being of peace who was born out of the melanated waters of Nu. It is a being of peace who was born out of the black, dark waters of the cosmos. That's what that is. That's what a Moslem is. So a Moslem is just naturally somebody that's born out of the cosmic waters of their mother's womb. All right. A being of peace. So we are Muslims by nature. So you don't have to be reading a Quran or worshiping Allah to be a Muslim. You are that naturally. Okay. Let's continue. So let's go into Surah 21 of the Quran, dealing with the prophets, verse 30. And it says, do not those who disbelieve see that we created from water or al-Maa every living thing. Surah 2 Al-Baqarah, the splitting, verses 21 and 22. So here you have in the Quran, it's stating that all was created from the waters. All right. The al-Maa, and the al-Maa is going back to ancient Egypt, dealing with Mu, or dealing with the waters. So all was created out of the waters. So you see this similarity and this symbolism showing up in Islam, which stems from ancient Egypt. And also you see it in the Hebrew mystery system. So then it says, who made the earth a resting place and constructed the heavens and reveals revelations from heavens, then brings forth from its fruits in order to sustain you. So do not set up rivals to Allah while you know. And also this too, when I say Allah, this is the same as basically the great spirit of the omniverse and the uncreate. Okay, so that's what we're talking about. So although I'm saying Allah, we're not talking about egotistical deity or some sky god. We're talking about the original principle of spirit, which is what is actually what powers and what energizes those dark waters. Because if you are familiar with the Hebrew Kabbalistic Islamic system, and you are familiar with what's called the Ruach Elohim, Ruach Elohim, the Ruach Elohim is that image or that face that was hovering above the waters in Genesis. And that represents the spirit that is infused within the dark waters of noon. So that spirit will represent basically the seed that comes from the male principle. And those dark waters of noon where things are born from, they are energized and powered by the masculine seed. That's why when a man's sperm hits a woman's egg, she starts to go into the mode of procreation. All right. So let's keep it moving. The Messianic mental baptism of the Blackamoor initiate into universal Sirius mystery. All right. Isis or Sirius is spiritual law, and Nephthys or Sirius C is commerce and lineage. Were said to be weeping for the death of Osiris, which is spirit Sirius B, execution of law. As is so often the case with Masonic symbolism, the secrets of baptism are involved with ancient Egyptian iconography and hieroglyphics. In this image, the gods are portrayed as weeping as they are throwing drops of sacred water. The Egyptian hieroglyphic MST, which looks like the threefold fall of water, actually means dew and portrays drops of water falling from heaven. The same hieroglyphic also means instruction or teaching. So we're kind of showing you what baptism really is, okay, from the Egyptian mystery system. The 19th century Masonic scholar John Simmons believed that the sound values of Egyptian hieroglyphics were more closely linked with the Hebrew language than with Coptic, as was widely believed. Let me repeat. The 19th century Masonic scholar John Simmons believed that the sound values of the Egyptian hieroglyphics were more closely linked with the Hebrew language than with the Coptic language, as was widely believed. So once again, you're seeing this connection between the Egyptian mystery system and the Hebrew system, mystery system. the Egyptian mystery system and the Islamic mystery system. Okay. When examining the hieroglyphic MST, he pointed out that the Hebrew IRE means to throw drops of water, ire, to sprinkle, and to teach or instruct. So you're seeing the connection between the Egyptian and Islamic and Hebrew connection of baptizing being associated with teaching or instructing. Okay. Then it says ire is related to the eye in English and Latin, and it is the eye of Horus or Heru that is seen over the pyramid representing the great architect. So that eye on the back of you all's dollar is actually the eye of Heru, the eye of the great architect. Okay. That is why it is on you all's dollar, because you all are the Muslims. You all are the children of Heru. So you need to feel very, very closely associated with those symbols on the back of that dollar bill, because they belong to you all. That great seal and that eagle who actually is Heru. Let's continue. He further pointed out that this hieroglyphic is linked with Egyptian baptism, with the notion of shedding celestial dew on the head of the neophyte. Excuse me. In support of his argument, he examined a plate which showed an Egyptian initiation scene where the god Horus and Thoth poured sacred waters on the head of the neophyte, the one initiated in his way by water and fire, was called in Hebrew Mechi, meaning something like begotten, also saved, or born again, a word relevant to the new state of the neophyte who has been initiated. According to Simmons, the Egyptian hieroglyphic equivalent of Mechi or Moses incorporated the image for dew, baptism, or celestial tears. It was the anointing of a master. Okay. So you will have in the New Testament a lot of alchemical symbolism. And you have, of course, John the Baptist, and then you have Yeshua. Now, John the Baptist is one who deals with the water. Yeshua is the one who deals with the fire. You have Thoth and you have Heru. Thoth is one who deals with the water. Heru is the one who deals with the fire, because Thoth is actually a lunar principle, okay, which deals with the celestial waters, the lunar waters. Heru is a solar principle, which deals with the fire. So you could be baptized by water and fire, okay? This is why in the Old Testament, when you read about Daniel, and when those Babylonians tried to get those Hebrews or those Muslims to give up their culture, and basically those prophets said, we're not doing that. So they said, well, we're going to just throw you in a lake of fire, or in the furnace. And when they put them in the furnace, they noticed that their bodies didn't burn up. And then there was a fire humanoid figure in the furnace with them. And it was the Son of Man. It was Christ. Okay. And they didn't burn up. So this is a symbol of being baptized by fire. And although you read this in the Egyptian, you read it in the Hebrew, you read it in the Quran, it's all associated with Muslims, okay, or Aboriginal people. Those who have been translators of the original Kara language of the Blackamoors, now called Arabic, of the Quran, need a knowledge of clear, untampered history in respect to Prophet Muhammad and his indigenous black Moorish-Israelite ancestry and lineage to the 18th dynasty's family of Amran, as well as a better grasp of the original meaning of the authors of the language of the verses in the Quran, in order to get the full spiritual science and truth out of these verses and others. The element water, H2O, is definitely the substance that is the basis of some molecular or organically living things. However, the combination of a hydrogen atom and an oxygen atom therefore was life force, power, and motion operating in this universe. Al-Maa, which is again the dark waters, in this verse is referring to what we call today ether, which is a form of primeval water, plasma, or dark matter of space. So that's what these dark waters are, the primeval waters of space. It was the Honorable Elijah Muhammad that taught his students that the first atom of the universe was created from space in his Theology of Time lecture series. In ancient Egypt, or Timor a Misra, because another word for Egypt in Hebrew is Mizraim. All right. It is space. The primeval waters was called the waters of noon by the Amarna dynasty. So by the spiritual and scientific makeup of the universe, We are Moslem or Moor. Our nature is Islam or peace. So the word Islam means peace. So when you see brothers say Islam to each other, that means peace. So when I say that to you all, that means peace. So it says our nature is Islam or peace according to the Our nature is Islam according to the anatomical and physiological makeup of our being. And this body of law, Quran, states that this is our nature, meaning the law that we are born into existence on and the laws that we sustain and maintain our life force, which is Islam. So you have to naturally do Islam just to keep your life force intact, just to keep your cells intact. We are by nationality and lineage Muslims or Moors. No Arabic scholar will ever explain Islam like this to black people or their own people, because they too have been deceived by their own scholarship. Some are a part of the rich bloodsuckers of the poor, the class called the 10% teachers of a mystery God. They are aligned in this satanic conspiracy to deprive us of our full and complete freedom. So what this is talking about, let's go from the top to bottom. So it says that the original Kara language of the Aboriginal Moor is now called Arabic. Okay. So that ancient Arabic known as Kara that was found in Nevada, that was the ancient form of Arabic. That's why I'm saying that we are the original Arab or the original Muslim. Then it goes on to say that people need to understand that Prophet Muhammad had a Moorish-Israelite lineage, and the lineage dated back to the 18th dynasty family of Amran of Egypt. Okay. So you can get a better understanding of these languages that the authors were using. So that's very, very important to know that Muhammad came from this bloodline, this Moorish Israelite ancestry. Okay. Then it goes on to say about the element H2O and how this really is the ether or the al-Maa that we were created out of, the waters of noon. Okay. And this primeval water is known as plasma, or also known as ether. All right. Known as the fifth element, to some. Okay. And then it goes on to say that, so by the spiritual and scientific makeup of the universe, we are Muslims or Moors. So you are a Moor based on the scientific makeup of the universe. Because what is a Moor or a Muslim? It comes from what? Mu-Salaam. Mu dealing with the dark waters of noon. Salam meaning peace. So you were born in peace, or you were born perfected. You were born via the Ein Sof in perfection, in peace, through the dark waters of noon. So that makes you a Moor, just strictly off of that. You know what I'm saying? Just strictly off of that. So let's keep going. So it says next, Surah al-Rums, or the Romans, because there is a part in the Quran that talks about Rome. 30:30. So set your person for the upright faith, the nature and origination of Allah, in which he has originated the nature of the people. There is no altering Allah's creation. That is the faith of the resurrected ones, but most people do not know. This verse states that Allah's or God's nature is Islam, and our persons or ourself should be directed towards that nature. The last time we ruled as a people, we lived by this spiritual science and culture. Since our demise, our enemy has done everything possible to keep us out of the true knowledge of the true history of the last time we, quote unquote, black people, ruled the world, and the knowledge of what governing body of law we use in our societal rule. This was just over 200 to 500 years ago, and Islam and the untampered Quran were the basis of our government. Today, we are split into different parties, sects, tribes, organizations, and nations at variance with one another, and which is a sign that we are still slaves and that we have been mastered by the separator, the satanic elite. The colonized religion we have been taught, which in essence is the falsification of the most important histories, has filtered over into our political movements, destroyed family life, and every other domain of our existence. Then it goes on to say, Anything else is another loop in deception. If our primary goal is total freedom, we need the truth of Allah, or the God self, or the higher self. So wrapping it up, man, you know, Aboriginal people have, you know, spiritual principles and sciences that stem from the schools of Merri, or the schools of so-called Egypt. And these sciences dealt with the baptism of water and fire. Okay. And this water and fire essentially, you know, is dealing with basically you getting in tune and resurrecting your lower self and coming in union with your higher self. So in other words, the same way you were born through the dark waters of noon, and when you were born first and you had your first birth here in the physical body, you're going to have to do that same thing to go back into your Aboriginal or your Autochthonous state. You're going to have to rebaptize yourself. That's why they say in the New Testament that, you know, you have to be baptized. That's why in the so-called Christian church, usually they don't consider you really a part of the church until you get quote unquote baptized, because that's dealing with the initiation of the neophyte. Okay. As it says that, Heru and Thoth actually pour water on the head of the neophyte, which is representing the dark waters of noon, the al-Maa, which is what we were all born through. So whenever you get baptized and they dump that water on you, or they put you in that water, that's basically symbolizing you being in the placenta, or you being in the womb of your mother. And then when you rise out of that, a new person. You know what I'm saying? With a new state of consciousness. Okay. So this stuff is very, very important. And this is all dealing with basically the resurrection of Hiram Abiff. It's dealing with building the third temple of Solomon, the third temple of the Hebrews, and basically all these other like mystical things that you all have heard of. You know what I'm saying? The resurrection of New Jerusalem and all these other things. All right. So I want to go over this one more time. It says the most honorable Elijah Muhammad teaches that all the original indigenous people are Muslims by nature, not by religion. Okay, that's the first thing. The second thing is that the word Muslim is derived from the Arabic Hebraic ma'a or ma'u, which stems from the Egyptian Sumerian mu. Okay, mu is dealing with the waters. All right, we talked about that. The al-Maa in Arab means the waters. The stem slim or SLM implies peace. So Mu-Salaam or Moslem means a being who is derived from al-Maa, the waters, and is a being of peace. So when I call you all a Muslim, or I call you all a Moor, what I'm saying is that you are an indigenous person who was born through the waters of noon, and your original state is peace. That's what I'm saying, basically. So when you say that, oh, I'm not a Moor or I'm not a Muslim, basically what you're saying is that I'm an artificial being. Like, that's what you're saying. Like, you're saying that you weren't born from a womb. You were saying that you weren't born through no, waters, through no woman's womb. Like, and the only thing that is like that is that it's an artificial machine, like, or something that was created on this physical planet. But anything else, it was born in some type of water. Okay. So the waters that we are derived from are twofold, spiritually and scientifically. The first is dealing with the placenta, that deals with the waters of the wombs of our mothers. The second deals with a verse in the spiritual science of the Quran, which is, do not those who disbelieve see that we from the water, that we created from the water, the al-Maa, every living thing. So this is what it says in the Quran, in Surah 2. Do not those who disbelieve see that we created from the water, the al-Maa, every living thing. Because everything that's living had to have been born from the waters of noon. And this we that we're talking about is the masculine feminine of Allah, or the higher self, or the God self. Because if you think Allah is all masculine, or if you think Allah is all feminine, then you're not really getting the science. So this is basically what we saying when we talk about Aboriginal occultism. We talk about the Egyptian mystery system. We talk about the Hebrew mystery system. We talk about the Islamic mystery system. What we are talking about is being born again through the waters of al-Maa, re-emerging ourselves with the consciousness of knowing that we were and always will be Muslims or Moors by nature, not by religion. And then ascending ourselves into the higher pineal gland of Heru, which is this Christ archetype that you see right here in front of you. So his Heru is not only an Egyptian Christ hero, but he is the American Christ hero. He is the Moslem Christ hero of the Moors of the West. Because when we break down all our Christ heroes, that's who they all date back to, Heru. Even if you deal with Ali in the Islamic system, when you break down all that science of that Christ hero, it's going to go back to Heru. When you break down Yeshua from the Hebrew mystery system, when you break that whole thing down, it's going to go back to Heru. Because Heru is one of the more ancient original aspects of the Christ, or aspects of the one who was born via fire. Okay. So this is why Heru is on the back of you all's dollar. This is why that pyramid on the back of the American dollar. Because we are the Moorish-Israelites, the descendants of the Egyptian dynastic family of Amran. That is who we are, you see. So we need to look a little deeper into the 18th dynasty. And some of our ancestors probably were the ones who were around the time of Akhenaten and brought back the Aten, or basically the one principle that has the multiple manifestations. So a lot of these wars that was going on in old Egypt, a lot of them were political in nature. And it probably was our family bloodline bringing back the original monotheistic principle. We were bringing back the monotheistic principle that had incorporated within it the polytheistic principle. So we were saying that it was one God, the one Aten, or the one Allah, you see, or the one Most High, but you have the different degrees and angles of the one Most High. This is where you get all your Elohim at, or this is where you get your 99 names or your 99 attributes of Allah. It's all the same science. So this is where you have the sun, the primordial point, and you have the different spokes or the 12 houses of the zodiac around it. This is what the science that we brought back, basically bringing the polytheism and the monotheism into one house. You see, so we are the ones responsible for that. That's what our ancestors did. That's our legacy. That's why we are Muslims and Hebrews. So that's why everybody knows that it's you all. You see, because this family of Amran, we're talking about a particular dynastic bloodline. OK, like I told y'all before, all these dynastic bloodlines weren't the same. Ramses was probably from a whole other bloodline than these people that I'm talking about. That's why in the Bible, didn't Ramses, when he beefing with the Hebrews? Because these Hebrews were just a particular bloodline of Egyptians. Okay. So it's the boy Blackbeard. We just went over some Islamic American sciences. Stay tuned. As usual, I'm out.